Good morning. Welcome to week two. Hopefully, you did okay on the exam yesterday. You didn't find any problems with it. Everything was pretty straightforward, I hope. So, in keeping with trying to merge statistics and real world together, today we're going to talk about quality because a lot of decisions in quality are made using statistics, statistical quality control, statistical management. Back to the idea of sampling. Is the product good or bad? So we look at quality today, then we'll start talking about statistics again tomorrow and how to describe the data. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention what's going on in the country. As you look around for the past week, lots of things happening in this country. Here's all I can say about that, folks. Every major religion in the world has something equivalent to what the Christian world calls the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do to you. If we all treat each other the way we want to be treated, this would be a better place to live. Think about that. Okay, let's talk about quality. Off my soapbox, let's talk about quality. Tried to find a good definition of quality. Apparently, it doesn't exist. Not quality, a good definition. I looked everywhere for a good definition. We're going to call it fitness for use as designed to be used. And we're going to make it very clear up front that I think quality is really defined by the customer. I can tell you I've got the greatest product in the world. You try it, you don't like it, you say it's junk. I can tell you I've got the greatest quality coffee in the world. Okay? And I've had some friends give me coffee in the past say, this is the best quality in the world for coffee. And I thought it was horrible. So it's fitness for use, as designed to be used, and the bottom line is the customer defines quality. Here's some definitions. There's some definitions in the slide deck that I came up with. I tried to find. I went to Webster's Dictionary. Their definition didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You can see it there in the slides. I went to the American Society for Quality. I said, well, hey, these bubbas have quality in their name. They've got to have a good definition of quality. And theirs didn't make sense to me either. I even went to dictionary.com. They claim they've got the largest dictionary, largest gathering of definitions of words in the world. And their definition, as you can see in the slide deck, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. So we're just going to stick with fitness for use. But the bottom line that's most important here is the customer defines the quality. I think what it really is, when you say it's fitness for use, it's absence of defects. It works the way it's supposed to work. If one part of it doesn't work right, it's not a quality product. If there's a little chip in the corner when you buy it, it's not a quality product. So it ties to, I think, the most important metric in quality we can come up with is customer satisfaction. Is the customer happy with the product? If not, it's not a quality product. A couple of things that I think are important to stress up front with quality before we delve into the topic itself. One is, this is just Joe's idea. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks this, but this is my idea, that everybody who works on the product is part of the quality management team. And I think that goes from the people that buy the components and sourcing, to the product design, to the manufacturers, to the people that deliver the product. All those are part of the product quality team. Even though a lot of companies have product quality assurance or quality assurance departments to make sure they're doing sampling, I think everybody who works on the product is part of that quality team. There's some dimensions to quality that are important to think about. Product-based. Does it have all the right attributes it's supposed to have? So in the case of our remote here, does it have an on-off switch? And does it work? Does it have a pointer? And does it work? Can I go forward and backwards with my slides when I'm in a classroom? And does that work? Product-based attributes. User-based attributes basically are, do I have what you want on the product, and are you happy with it? Or if I put too many bells and whistles on it, we'll talk about that when we get to product design later in the semester. But do I have too many bells and whistles on it, and maybe that doesn't come out right? This is manufacturing attributes or dimensions. When I was at R&D for the Army, everything we designed had to have certain military specifications and thickness and tensile strengths in certain operating temperatures and operating environments. This is value-based dimensions. Do you, the customer, really feel like you're getting your money's worth for the product? Or do you feel like you paid too much for it? One of the gurus of quality from the past century, and we're still using his work today, is a guy named Garvin. Garvin came up with a list of things that he thought were important from a product perspective for quality. Dimensions from the product perspective for quality. I want to hit on some of these. They're all in the slide deck. I want to hit on some of these, but I think some of them are critical. Does it have extra features? Have I put so many features into this product? And we'll talk about this when we get to product design. But I put so many features in the product that it's really not worth it for the customer. Or you can't figure out how to use all these different attributes. So for example, I used to have a remote that I used in presentations. It had like 13 buttons on it. This one that I use now has pretty much, it's like a crutch. I like to have it in my hand. It's got an on-off switch. It's got one. It's got a forward and a backward switch. So that's 3. It's got a switch so I can black out the slides when I'm doing presentations. That's 4. It's got a switch that I can hit, a button I can hit that'll actually take it from PowerPoint to a presentation. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's got a button on the side. I can actually time how long I'm spending in presentations when I rehearse them. 6 buttons. I know what they all do. This one I had 13 buttons. And it fit perfectly in my hand. A little bitty remote fit great in my hand. It had 13 buttons on it. I pulled down the operating manual for every single product this company made. About 5 of those buttons didn't work on anything. Maybe they're there for the future, I don't know. But technology passed them by and they don't even make remotes anymore. So am I adding features that are extra, that aren't needed? That are adding cost? They're not adding value. How reliable is this product? How well is it going to work over time? And does it work that well? And if it, maintainability of it, once it breaks, how easy is it to fix it? What's the lifespan before I got to replace it? And how easy is it to fix if it does break? There's some other perceptions I think are important. Like, can I convince you through marketing or brand name recognition that my product is much better? Can I convince you that $12,000 Rolex is a much better quality product than a $100 Timex? It can just keep better time. $12,000, it better drive me to my appointments, not just tell me when the appointment is. Isn't that really the goal of marketing and advertising? To convince you that there's a better quality product than what you're using right now? And there's some service quality dimensions I think are important to mention also. What's the waiting time? What's the completeness of your order? Now these two things together actually were the foundation for a study done about 13 years ago now, maybe 14 years ago, in southern Missouri. McDonald's was having an issue with order completeness or order accuracy. And the time people were waiting in the drive-thru line. Now, from an order completion, order accuracy perspective, think about that for a second. There is probably nothing worse than going to McDonald's, getting a cheeseburger, fries, drink. You drive through, you get about a half mile down the road, you reach in the bag for the fries, and there's no fries in the bag. Now you're a mile or so down the interstate, heading the other direction, 5 miles to the next exit, not really worth it to turn around and go back and just get your fries. Or even worse, You reach in and grab your cheeseburger while you're driving, it's a fillet of fish. Ugh, not good. So they ran this test then in southern Missouri. And some of the results of this test you see at every McDonald's today. That being that little screen when you place your order. It's got a little screen there that you can see exactly what you ordered to see if you have the right order or not. And the other thing they tested was they outsourced the actual order taking to a call center in Colorado. So you pull up to McDonald's, you place your order, you're talking to somebody sitting in a call center in Colorado, you're in your car in southern Missouri. They did this because these people at the call center, their core competency was running a call center, taking orders. They placed the order, you saw the little screen there, what you ordered, you pulled to one window, you paid at that window, and got your food at the same window. Kind of like Wendy's does. And the reason for that was because they saw a lot of customer dissatisfaction because you paid at window number one, you got your food at window number two, and now there's no rush to get your food because I got your money. What they saw from this test was customer satisfaction went through the roof. Order completion, order accuracy, and time in the line all improved dramatically. Courtesy. How are you treated by the employees? I think that's a measure of service quality. Does everybody get treated the same? Now, from my experiences, I think there's probably one place, maybe a couple, one primary place in the world where maybe there's an excuse for not treating everybody the same. That's Las Vegas. When I lived in California the first time, they did a study during the Super Bowl week and a big article published in the LA Times about the casinos in Las Vegas. They were flying people in, putting them up in a room, flying them to the Super Bowl, and then flying them back. Because they identified about 100 people who had the capability of losing in excess of $5 million in a weekend. And several hundred people they identified had the capability of losing $1 million or more in a weekend. And then there's me. If I lose $20 gambling, I'm all bent out of shape. In fact, I got to the point I don't even do it anymore because losing $20 upsets me. I'd rather just sit there and eat and watch people for $20. But anyway, they were flying people in, flying to the Super Bowl, flying back, put up in the rooms. Last time I went through Las Vegas on business, I flew into Las Vegas, but I was working in Southern California. And it's more convenient to fly into Vegas and drive to Southern California than to try to fly into LA and fight the traffic there. Get in late at night, check in the hotel. Lady goes, Mr. Walden, let me tell you why you're here. We need to explain this to you. If you join our slot club and you get 10,000 points, we'll give you a free meal. Well, I had to bite. Okay, I don't get a point. You get a point for every $10 you play. Now I'm trying to do quick math in my head. 10,000 times $10. So if I lose $100,000, you'll give me a free meal. Yes, sir. Pretty much that's, yeah, good analysis. Tell you what, you keep your $20 meal. I'll pay for my food and I'll keep my money. How's that? She goes, wise decision. I mean, seriously, if you're willing to lose $5 million, let's be honest, that ain't a free room you're getting. You're paying for that room. But if you're willing to lose $5 million, you should get treated a little better than somebody like me who's willing to lose $20 and get upset about it. There's some quality philosophers from the 20th century that we're still using today. Probably because they came up with some good ideas, and why screw with it if it's a good idea? I am a firm believer, we'll talk about this a little more when we get to product design and process design, but I'm a firm believer if it works, don't mess with it. And these guys came up with some good ideas that are still sound and still work. 1920s, a guy named Walter Sheward came along 100 years ago. We're still using his work today. There's a thing called the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. And there's a picture of it in your slide deck. This thing's been around since the 1920s. We're still using it. It's the foundation for pretty much every continuous process improvement program today. One of the folks that studied his work, we've already mentioned before, Dr. W. Edwards Deming. Dr. Deming went to Japan, taught the Japanese statistical quality control, statistical management in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. A guy named Juran came along in the 60s and 70s. Juran said that he really thought that quality should be a strategic initiative, something we're looking at into the future. We talked about strategy last week. He says quality should be a strategic initiative. It's not just a day-to-day function. It's also a strategic initiative, which ties to our discussion we're going to have next week. We talk about process design, how to build a product. A guy named Feigenbaum came along in the 70s, early 80s time frame, and basically said what I said earlier. Everybody who works on a product is part of that product quality team. I want to look at some of Deming's points. Deming came up with what he called his 14 points, which are still the foundation for a lot of quality management programs today. I don't want to go through them. I'm not going through all of them. I don't want you to memorize them. Like as I said before, I don't want you to memorize anything in this course. Studies show that 80% of what you learn while you're an undergraduate, you're going to forget in the first 2 years after you graduate. Which tells me you aren't really learning it. You're memorizing it, you're regurgitating it for an exam, you're flushing it and starting again. Or it wasn't of value to learn to begin with. So I don't want you to memorize anything in this course. Somewhere in the future, you need to know Deming's 14 points. Somebody asks you about establishing a quality program. You can go to your phone, go to your browser, type in Deming 14. Boom, there it is in your hand. Why memorize something you don't need to memorize? What I want you to know is that Deming's 14 points are still the foundation for many quality programs today. 60, 70 years after he came up with them. Adopt a philosophy of prevention. Let's prevent quality problems from happening. Let's design quality products as opposed to trying to catch it in the testing or sampling process after it's already made. Always work to improve the system. Always try to make it better. One of the things he was big on was worker training. Remember we talked about competing on cost? He said one of the things I got to do is spend money on training of the employees. Because if I don't know what right looks like, I can't make a quality product. One of Deming's foundation was always work on improving the training for the workers. He also said you need to instill leadership in the supervisors. Deming was one of the first folks to understand the difference between management and leadership. You manage things, you lead people. If you got people working for you, your supervisors need to have leadership skills. Get rid of barriers. What a great idea. 60s to 70s, even in the 80s, Ford had this big slogan, quality is job one. Every advertisement for Ford at the end of the commercial, whether it was on TV, radio, newspaper, magazines, wherever it was, at the end of the advertisement, it always ended with, at Ford, quality is job one. Go into a Ford dealership, there's banners in every Ford dealership. Quality is job one. Go into the maintenance bays. They had banners in the maintenance bays signed by all the mechanics. Try to emphasize that quality is job one. My father-in-law has bought one Ford in his entire life. He bought it when quality was job one. He's convinced, 40 years later, he's still convinced that Ford is an acronym for fixed or repaired daily. Because it's a piece of junk. The slogan didn't improve the quality of the car. It sounded good. It sounded like they were trying to compete on quality with the Japanese cars, but they weren't doing that. It was only in the slogan. And the last thing I think is important from his 14 points I want to emphasize is his last point says that you've got to have somebody at the upper levels of the organization that's the champion for the quality product program. Quality is not a grassroots initiative. It's got to have support from up top. And if people up top don't support it, then the program's not going to work. And we'll talk about that in just a second with some of the programs that have come along in the last 20, 30 years. Six Sigma is a good example of that. Six Sigma really started at Motorola. Now we're going to look at normal distributions in a couple of days in statistics. Six Sigma, the little sigma, is the statistical symbol for standard deviation. We're going to look at that in about 2 days. Six Sigma is 6 standard deviations from the mean. When Motorola started it, they called it their 7 nines program. It was literally, they were shooting for quality at the level of 99.99999% quality. Works out to about 3.2 defects per million things made. That's not bad. That's not bad. And it worked well at Motorola. The steps for it, there's 5 steps in Six Sigma. Define the process, measure the process, analyze the process, improve it, and then control the process, institutionalize these changes, these improvements, so that everybody's doing things the same way and reduce the variability, thus improving the quality. Jack Welch, CEO of GE at the time, said, I like this program. In fact, I'm pretty convinced that we can use Six Sigma not only in our manufacturing operations, but also in our commercial credit and our service operations. Support from the top. Deming's 14th point. Problem was the people below him kind of drug their feet. See, the 80s into the early 90s, it's like a decade of quality improvement programs. Almost every year, there's a new program. And depending on which school you went to, you got a different emphasis on a different quality improvement program, or different quality improvement guru. So people in the 80s, early 90s were a little slow, going to drag their feet because they were tired of new programs. Unless you're really, really bad in your organization, it's going to take about 18 months to see the fruition of quality improvement programs. If you're changing every 12 months, you never see the fruition. Frustration sets in because you're starting a new program, then you start a new program. People kind of drug their feet. After several years of saying we need to do Six Sigma, finally Jack Welch told his executive panel, he said, look, 40% of the bonuses for all the executives in this organization is tied to Six Sigma, and successful implementation of Six Sigma. He found out what was important to them, their bonus, and he tied the implementation to their bonus, and all of a sudden it started working. And he was right. It worked for the manufacturing as well as the service side of the industry. We created a national quality award, the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. It's our equivalent of the Deming Prize in Japan. There are 5 critical areas to compete in. I've got a couple of them listed in the slide deck because I think these are critical, talking about Six Sigma. When I went to study Six Sigma at Motorola University, they said the first step of Six Sigma, before you can define the process, first thing you do is you got to define the customer. Define what the customer wants and define how we can do it better than the competition. If you look at the 2 areas of the Malcolm Baldrige Award that are listed in the slide deck, category 3 and category 4, really those 2 are tied to define the customer, define what the customer wants, define how we can do it better than the competition. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, this thing called total quality management came along. And I've got some of the key areas of total quality management listed in a slide for you there, in the slide deck. But if you look at this, I got like 8 of them listed in the slide deck. If you look at these, none of these are new. It's like somebody went along, took all the previous quality programs, laid them on the table and said, okay, we'll take the best of this one and this one and this one and this one. We're gonna put them together. Total quality management was like the best attributes of almost every quality program went along from Shewhart in the 1920s until the 1990s when it came about. Really nothing new here. This should have been the greatest quality program ever designed. Because there was nothing new. It was like the best of all the rest of them. Problem was it came along during that decade of quality improvement programs, and nobody at the upper levels of corporation wanted to support total quality management. They too were tired of all of these changes in quality management programs. So it never really got off the ground, which is unfortunate because it should have been very, very good if we'd used it. There's some cost of quality. A guy named Philip Crosby in the 1980 timeframe wrote a book called Quality is Free. Probably one of the most confusing books ever written. Not because it wasn't written well. It's written very, very well. Problem was most people who bought it never read it. They read the title, they read the dust cover, said, oh, we got it. Quality doesn't cost anything. That's not at all what Crosby was saying. What Crosby was trying to get across in his book, it's not like yay thick, it's a little book. What he's trying to get across in his book was the cost of poor quality is so large that the cost of preventing quality issues appears to be almost free. FedEx has a measure of quality. FedEx measures every package they deliver and give it a grade. It gets a better score if it's an hour late but not damaged than on time but damaged. And when you think about it, that's pretty impressive because FedEx delivers for about 2 weeks in December 20 million packages a day. They track every one of them and they give it a score. They came up with what they call their 1-10-100 rule. If they can catch it and fix it as soon as a problem occurs, it costs X amount of money, X amount of time and personnel to fix it. If it gets caught somewhere else in the FedEx system, which is 10 times the original cost to fix it, and if they don't catch it and it gets in the hands of the customer, it's as much as 100 times that original cost to make the problem go away. I've talked to several other companies and they say, that makes sense. We've never captured the data. That sounds pretty close to what we see in our company. So let's look at the cost of quality. There's good quality and poor quality. Good quality is preventing quality issues. It's planning and designing a quality product. It's planning and designing a quality process to make that product. It's training the employees to make sure they know what right looks like. And it's passing information throughout the organization so everybody knows when there's an issue and how to fix it. There's an appraisal process. And when Harley Davidson used to be in Kansas City, I used to go visit them on a regular basis. I spent some time with them a couple of times looking at their operations. They had 2 people every day, probably one of the best jobs in the world. They got paid every day to ride a motorcycle. Good job. They would randomly select 2 bikes every day off the assembly line. They would take it for a ride. They'd bring it back, take it apart, look at it, put it back together. They put those bikes on display in the break room the next day so you could see what issues, if there were any, were found. So part of the cost of quality is that appraisal process, that testing process, the statistical testing of products. But the flip side of that is poor quality. Now, with poor quality, if you think about it from the FedEx perspective, the cost of good quality is that one from the FedEx 1-10-100 rule. Internal to the organization, there's some issues. That 10 piece of the FedEx 1-10-100 rule. There's scrap. I just screwed up so bad I got to throw it away. Rework. I didn't make it right. I got to come back and fix it. This price downgrading, because word got out. We're not making a real good quality product. So now I got to lower the price to get you to buy it. Maybe I screwed up so bad I messed up my machines. Now I got process downtime. Once it gets in the hands of the customer, that 100 piece of FedEx's 110, 100 rule, the costs go up again exponentially. There's customer complaints. There's warranty work. There's product recalls. There's bad publicity. There's lost sales. There's even liability suits because the product didn't work right. All these things I need to consider. When you look at, again, the cost of producing a quality product is so much lower than the cost of poor quality. In Crosby's words, it makes that cost of quality appear to be almost free. One of the tools, I think I got a picture of it in the slide deck. One of the tools I think is critical in the quality world is called the cause and effect diagram. You may also see it called the Ishikawa diagram, because a Bubba out of Japan, Ishiroku Ishikawa, came up with this diagram. And as happens in business a lot, when you do something that's good, put your name on it. It's also called the fishbone diagram. If you come from the redneck world like I do, it looks like somebody took a fish, cut it down the middle to fillet it. You got the head, you got the bones. So you may see it called in different courses or different references. Cause and effect diagram, fishbone diagram, Ishikawa diagram. They're all the same thing. I've got a quality problem I've identified. If I drill down, and almost always, if I drill down in the areas of machines, human, measurement, environment, materials, and process, I'm going to find what caused that problem. Maybe my machines are not calibrated right. I'm not getting the right holes punched like I should in a drill press. Maybe my people are just, they're not focused, or they're not trained properly. Maybe I've got a dirt and dust issue that's creating a problem. Maybe I got a poor design for the process, how to build it, or poor quality raw materials coming in. When I drill down those 6 areas, the idea is find out what caused the problem and fix it. So put a Band-Aid over the symptom, treat the problem. There's a couple of quality assurance certifications out there. One is the ISO 9000 family of certifications. It's an international standard. International Standards Organization. You can go to their website, you can pull down pay the price, pull down their check sheets, and you can implement a program. Now, if you want to be ISO 9000 certified, it requires a third-party auditor to come in and audit your process to ensure that, yes, you've got the right quality management program, you've got standard operating procedures, you've got process maps, and you're following them. It's an expensive process, and it's a timely process. And then there's ISO 14000. ISO 14000 is environmental quality. Am I following all the right internationally approved standards for the environment? Now, the good news here is this used to be, ISO 14000 used to be, you could self-certify. Get the checklist, I'm doing that, I'm doing all these things. I'm ISO 14000 certified in my company. I may be dumping stuff in the hazardous materials in the back 40, but I can tell everybody I'm ISO 14000. The good news is a couple of years ago, they recognized this issue and made it so it also has to be a third-party auditor to certify your ISO 14000 certification. So ISO 9000 is quality management systems. ISO 14000 is environmental quality. I asked a question on an exam a couple of years ago, what's the difference between ISO 9000 and ISO 14000? And somebody's answer was ISO 5000. They got credit for creativity, but that's not the right answer. The difference is 9000 looks at quality management systems, 14000 looks at environmental quality. So let's wrap up the quality discussion. So we get into a little statistics and back into operations again, trying to blend the two of them together to give you a more balanced look at it. Quality is defined by the customer, fitness for use as designed to be used. Why do I keep saying as designed to be used? Because let's be honest. There was this Geico commercial a couple years ago. Bubba was trying to nail stuff in the wall with his iPad and it broke it. iPad's not designed to be used as a hammer. So it's fitness for use as designed to be used. It's important because it impacts overall customer perception. It impacts sales. It impacts reputation of the company. Talk about Deming and his 14 points. We looked at Shewhart with his plan, do, check, act, cycle. We looked at Deming with his 14 points. Duran, it's a strategic program, or should be a strategic program for quality. And Feigenbaum, everybody is part of the quality team. We looked at Deming's 14 points. And again, please, don't try to memorize the 14 points. I'm not going to ask you to spit them back out again. I've been teaching quality for about 14 years now, and I don't have them memorized. I don't need to memorize them. I've got them on a slide. I've got them bookmarked on my phone. If I need them, I can pull them up. But those 14 points, what I want you to know about those 14 points is those 14 points from Deming are still used. 60, 70 years after he came up with them, they're still used today as the foundation for quality management programs. That's a pretty good test of time. Still being used 70 years later. We looked at the cost of quality, good quality versus bad quality. We looked at ISO 9000, ISO 14000 as international standards for 9000 for quality management systems and 14,000 for environmental quality programs. We've got to exam 1. We're looking down toward exam 2 now in the future. Stay focused, stay positive. Again, folks, if something doesn't make sense, don't wait till after the exam to ask the question. Ask me. I will tell you. Have a great day. Stay well, stay focused, stay positive. Till tomorrow, see you then.